Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson, and I'm here with my partner in crime.
Todd Peterson, thanks for joining us, folks. And Jason, I don't know if it's our Facebook feed or our topic. It didn't seem too spicy, but folks, if you're on Facebook, let us know in the comments here. It's not showing a whole lot of activity right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's fun as you do this digital marketing, content creation game, and you get to see like suppression in real life. It's like you hit the button on something, on an article, on a video, and everything, and it can go good, it can go bad. It's truly fascinating. Hey, but shout out to our fans on Rumble. K-Gun Girl, always the first one here, and we got Francis. Francis, we're so delighted to have you here. We got
on X right away. Is that the Jamaica flag? Thanks, Carlene. Oh, and we got Dee Dee in the chat. Jason, the gang is ready to go. Happy Friday, everybody. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Todd, I don't know about you. Every week when we go through this, you try to pick up these themes and topics and what do we want to talk about? What do we want to spend our time with? And like Todd said before we get started, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up on whatever platform you're on. Helps tell the algorithm you like what you're seeing. Hit the share button. That helps us get reach. We appreciate the heck out of you. But the more we went through this week, and I know we like on Wayne's podcast this week, we talked about Israel, Iran. Don't really need to get into that much. The thing that sticks out to me is just how divided and how segmented America First MAGA is becoming from the Democrat Party. And Todd, it's just astounding to me.
I call this the Reddit argument now. I have people in my own social circle, family and friends, and you don't even debate ideas anymore with these clowns. You have to debate facts the entire time. Jason, it is so exhausting. So we've got an example today, folks. You've got people defending Joe Biden's health, even though we all know there's nothing to debate about this. Joe Biden was in mental decline. This is a fact. You will have conversations with your Democrat voting family members and friends. We got a clip of Jasmine Crockett saying he's still doing great. And it's like, I can't even get into debating how to make this country great because I'm getting into these debates about, no, this is a fact. I don't want to debate facts with these people anymore. That is the reality that we share. They have two different universes. One where we live on planet Earth, and whatever universe they live in here that's been created by some propaganda brainwashing machine.
Oh my gosh. Oh, hey, we got Paul Reese over in the chat too. Paul Reese, Split Rock Coffee.
Hey, let me, I got to reach for the mug. It's far away still, Jason.
Giddy up. Split Rock Coffee. Go to splitrockcoffee.com. Todd, do we have a promo code?
Folks, at splitrockcoffee.com, use promo code TODD10. Save instantly on your next order. Again, from splitrockcoffee.com. Subscribe and save to get today. Paul Reese is local here in Minnesota with us, disabled veteran-owned coffee company. He lives in Minnesota. We live in Minnesota. We are dealing with Tim Walz's tyranny every single day, but you can support him out and get delicious coffee delivered to your doorstep. splitrockcoffee.com, promo code TODD10.
Giddy up. Well, and the first story we wanted to talk about, we love showing videos. We'll get to some videos here, but this was one of the underreported news stories of the week. And we're going to connect a few dots here for everybody. I don't think I'll need the tinfoil hat. I think this is going to be pretty clear. Reports came out this week that the Democrat National Committee is going broke, if not broke, and they need to potentially borrow money to continue their operation. And I break it down. I'll be curious, Todd's, and we'll get into some details here, but I think it's two things. I think one, every 80-20 issue where 80% of the country supports deporting criminal illegals, they're on the wrong side of that. Transgenderism for kids. 80% of America says, no, leave the kids alone. 20% says, yes, it's a good idea. Democrats fall in line with all that ideals. The other thing is something we talked about a lot a few weeks ago, and that's USAID. And I want to talk about how that money laundering of USAID, because when we said it, when it first came out and they were digging in to USAID, I said, you watch, Democrat support will go down, Democrat fundraising will go down. And I had people call me, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist or this or that. It now appears to be proving true. Todd, what's your overall when you see a headline like this? Kind of where do you land on it?
So I go back in recent history and I read headlines that said Kamala Harris was raising record amounts of money in just a short 4-month campaign Billions of dollars for Kamala Harris. We're so excited for her. We got to defeat Trump. I mean, Trump is still president, so the America First agenda is still a threat for Democrats, so that hasn't changed. She raised all the money, and somehow the DNC is broke, Jason. It tells me, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. It tells me that all the Act Blue fraudulence, all the USAID money funneling themselves into Democrat coffers, it seems like all of their support was not from the mom and pops, the grandmas writing a $10 check. Seems like it came from you and me, and they just stole it from us and then circled it back into Democrats.
Yeah, and I was going to say, sometimes, like, some of this stuff, people try to overthink it, or you try talking to a Democrat and like, oh, no. Like, the fact of the matter is, I don't know how many of you know Democrats. They are the least charitable, least giving people I know. They have the strongest opinions about everything from how you should live your life to we need to help poor people. But not once do they get off their ass and go volunteer to help homeless people, or do they donate money to the food shelf, or they do any of that. They like to talk about it. They like to virtual signal. They like to post about it on social media. But giving money or giving time and effort is something completely foreign to them. And that's why I always thought all this Democrat fundraising is coming from big money donors and from scams. And people told me, oh, no, like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and all that. No, the fact of the matter is, when USAID happened, here's the scam, and we're going to cover the story later. The government gives money to these NGOs, non-government organizations. The non-government organizations then employ all these crazy leftists who you wouldn't hire to mow your lawn because they are just not efficient. They are not good at what they do. Those people get money, and those people will donate some to the political people on the Democrat side, because they know that if you cut off their government funding, you cut off their job. So they are supporting people that support their organization. And then that organization will hire friends, family of the politicians, or they'll hire the politician to come in and give a speech, or that organization will somehow funnel money to somebody else that donates it to the politicians. Whole a big money laundering scheme. Thank you, Elon Musk, for exposing, shutting it down. It is not coincidence that when you shut down USAID, that you also are seeing that you're shutting down Democrat fundraising. Todd, did I miss anything?
You nailed it. And as you were talking, I was going to jump in to correct you, Jason. You said they're not charitable. They're very charitable with other people's money. And we're over on Facebook, and Brent said the exact same thing. Brent was reading my mind. They're generous with our money, but not their own. I just want to give a shout out to our Facebook audience here for a second. We got Keith over there telling the truth. Jesse, I think I recognize Jesse Garza's name. He's been here before. Thanks for coming back, Jesse. Trump is the best. F the Democrats. And here's a new one here. It's not demon rats anymore. It's dementia-crats. And they F themselves. You would think so. You would really think the Democrats F themselves. But Jason, half this country is still going to vote for these clowns in 2028, because that is just where we're at. You can show them these facts all day long. But like I said in my intro part here, facts are irrelevant to the left. They do not care. They believe what they believe. And you can say they're corrupt. This is the money laundering. Can I connect the dots for you? And they say, but Trump.
Right. And I have to say, USAID, and we did full breakdowns, covered videos. Here's the charts. Here's the that. It is a big money laundry. I almost think the first video we should go to. Do you have that clip, Todd, we had about the discovering root cause of immigration?
Before we do that, though, can I give a little good morning over to Fally? Fally got her Rumble login working again. Good morning, Fally.
Oh, my God. And I got to say, too, folks, for those who don't know, especially on some of the other platforms, Facebook, YouTube, we broadcast on multiple platforms. We appreciate all of you on all the platforms. Rumble's our favorite. Here's why. We do it an extra half hour, 45 minutes after the end of the show over on our Rumble channel, because we're going to dive into stuff that we can't say on some of these platforms. I let a swear word out earlier. Some of those platforms don't like that. But when we talk about some of these topics, we have to be very careful how we phrase them, because they censor. Everything you've heard is true. Rumble, free speech. That's why we love Rumble. That's why we have a great audience over there. And oh my God, it's Fally's birthday over there.
Fally. Oh my goodness. We need to get a Trump dance going for Fally here.
Giddy up. Well, hey, let's start with that USAID one if you got that one, Todd. I love this story.
Ghost town.
Now let me frame it
Every
up too before we get in there. So if you remember, Todd, what was Kamala Harris's solution to solving the immigration problem?
She wanted to investigate root causes. Now, this sounds very erudite and scholarly. I'm going to investigate and research and really dig into this problem here. She's trying to figure out, why are all these people coming to a country that invites me in and gives me free stuff? Gosh, I wonder what that could be. But Kamala Harris was your border czar, and for a time we were not allowed to call her the border czar on Facebook. They would censor that and they demonetize that. Now that's true. We have the clips. But border czar Harris said she was going to travel down to Central America, South America, and figure out, why are all these people coming here that we told to come here, and give them stuff when they come here? I don't know, Jason. It was a real head scratcher.
Yeah, I was going to say, when this came out, we were talking like, this is the most, I wanted to use the R word, Todd, but I didn't want to use it this early in the show. Your wife might be watching, and I don't want her to say Jason uses the R word too much. But this was the stupidest idea ever. Like, you have third world countries that are run poorly with a very poor standard of living. And then over here, you have America with Democrats standing there waving a sign saying free stuff, free stuff, free stuff. And you really need to investigate the root cause of why people are coming here. It was the most idiotic, imbecilic idea ever. And if you would talk to your Democrat friends, they'd be like the clap and cheers, like, oh, yeah, we should figure out why it is. It's like, listen, are you stupid? Their country sucks, and we're offering them free stuff. Why do you think they're coming here? So even on the surface, it was idiotic. But this week, this story broke, and it just made me chuckle.
That hombre in the third world knows we're not spread eagle anymore. They love Joe and his border czar Kamala. She was never really interested in building a wall. She just wanted to find root causes.
We want to work with you to address both the acute causes as well as the root causes. We are focused on addressing both the acute factors and the root causes. Not only the root causes, but the acute causes. To look at the root causes and the acute causes. My trip to Guatemala and Mexico was about addressing the root causes. Addressing the root causes of irregular migration. For the past 3 years, I have led our administration's efforts to address the root causes of migration.
And we're learning.
God, she was almost president. I cannot fathom being a Democrat voter and thinking, like, this sounds good. Boy, she really did a good job over 3 years, if you saw the dates there in the Chiron. 3 years of addressing the root causes. And Jason, for the life of me, I don't even know what the difference is between that and acute cause. I had forgotten that she used that as a talking point, too.
Yeah, let's use big words and say nothing, and let's spend hundreds of millions of dollars investigating something. You could walk up to virtually every American and say, what do you think the root causes of immigration? Well, their country sucks. Our country's great, and we're promising them free stuff. Why wouldn't you go there? Like, there's no barrier for entry. There's no anything. This was the stupidest idea ever. And I'm going to say, who do we have in the chat? I just saw Patrick over there saying something about Trump and the Epstein files. I can't leave it up too long because it's on some of the platforms. But here's what I'm going to say, Patrick. You were so idiotic. You voted for this. You saw Kamala Harris talking about, the root causes of immigration. And you're like, yeah, let's do that, Kamala. That's a great idea. We all, with a functioning brain cell, knew it was a scam from day one. And Todd, should we see how the scam played out?
Can I jump in on Patrick for a second, though? This is what I'm talking about, folks. This is how you have to debate facts with these morons and not actual ideas here. Patrick is so bent out of shape over the fact that Trump is a P word, and then he completely ignores the fact that there are other P words in our government, allegedly, as well. But Trump's the only bad one. The other ones he'll give a pass to. And he voted for the party that allowed unfettered trafficking of young girls and women across this border into the country. Joe Biden lost, if I'm remembering the number correctly, over 300,000 kids in his administration getting sent into where we all know what is happening to them. But Patrick's really concerned about P word Trump for a second because of, I'm going to say, Jeffrey Epstein, and a name I've never heard before. But yeah, good job, Patrick, for getting outraged about that and ignoring everything else that your government's been involved in and enabled. These people are absolutely ridiculous.
Right. And I got to say, even Kevin or Ken over on Facebook, like, we've not met Ken, don't know anything about it. Root causes, free lodging, free money, free phones, effing idiots. Yes. It like anybody can with two brain cells to rub together can figure this out. But let's see how this played out, Todd.
Now that she did what Joe did and tried to pass that work off onto someone else using USAID. They wrote up a contract worth up to $800 million for consultants to find the root causes for them. But here's the problem. Walter Barnes III, the man who founded one of these companies that got the cash, was a known con man. He just pled guilty to a decade-long USAID bribery scheme. And the government knew he was shady for years, even before they gave him all the money. Now, in 2023, the USAID Inspector General said Barnes lacked honesty and integrity. But on the same day, he was awarded an $800 million contract. They had good reason to be suspicious. Over the years, Barnes secured big money deals by bribing USAID employee with pricey basketball suites, a trip to the vineyard, and even a down payment on a house. Isn't that nice? And once he got paid, Barnes burned through pallets of cash, doing everything but what we paid him to do. We reached out to Walter, never got back to us. The southern border.
Oh.
It's just so tiring. And we covered this on the American Tribune. We wrote a couple articles about it. So one, you start with the premise that anybody with a brain cell knows. People are coming here because we let them in, we give them free stuff, and their country sucks. We take $800 million, and this is just through USAID, and this is just to one agency. So it was a waste before we even handed them over $1. And then we handed over to a guy who's shady as heck and a criminal and was convicted. And then how much of that money got funneled back to the political campaigns, to the local politicians, to employees who then, I mean, all of it. This is USAID in a nutshell. It is a Democrat funding idea. And your Democrat family members have voted for this. Like when Kamala had said, yeah, let's get into root causes. Like they looked at you like, you're like, this is a scam. This is ridiculous. And they looked at you like, well, why don't you let's sign? Why wouldn't we want to know what's going on down there and why everybody wants to come here? And it's like, we already know. It is the craziest thing ever.
And it was crazy before we learned about the $800 million contract. And it's not an accident this guy was a felon. They chose him because he was a convicted criminal now. They wanted some guy that knew how to launder money, be shady, waste it all. Like, this is who Democrats are. They chose him for that reason. It wasn't like, oops, we didn't know any better. It's like, no, they chose him because he is that way. But yeah, if you don't see this as a massive money laundering operation, and we got Patrick. Patrick's probably not watching anymore. He's probably like, yeah, but Trump launders money too. These people are... I can't, Jason. I'm so fired up today.
Oh, my gosh. This just blows me away, and you start connecting all these dots, and it's all the things you knew. When Trump and Elon, or Trump said Elon and Doge in to start digging out USAID, and Democrats were screaming bloody murder, it's like, I remember back to stepson. Love my stepson. He was great. We had this rule where you couldn't have pop in your room or drinks because he never threw the garbage away. And then I remember one time I saw a can kind of under his bed, and I'm like, oh, I should go grab that. And he was like freaking out, like, you can't go in my room, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I am going to find 100 empty cans and bottles in your room, aren't I? And he's like, why, yes, you are. And we went in there and we cleaned up the 100 empty bottles. And Democrats are just like that. It's like, oh, here's USA. This looks sketchy. Maybe we should dig into it. And then they start screaming like, oh, no, Hitler, Nazi. Oh, my God. And it's like, this is totally a money laundering operation. That's all that it is.
Yeah, and Kevin asked the only question worth asking, when does it end? I don't see any politicians being held accountable, do I? That's it, Jason. Like, we have all the receipts. We have all the names. They're going to do these little low fish, like small fish deals here. Like, oh, this guy's in prison, so we solved the $800 million scam. And it's like, no, you didn't, because you still have people that set up those transfers, run those programs in the government. You have the politicians all the way at the top. Yeah, you had Liz Warren out there getting mad at Musk and Trump. All the Dems saying, no, Doge is disgusting. This is tyrannical. We have so much overreach in our government. No one elected Musk. Defending this corruption that they all know exists. They all need to go to prison. Prison would be the nicest solution for these people.
Yeah, and And it's funny because Paul talks about too. What about the $2 billion he gave to an account that was a starter account? Stacey Abrams was started an NGO that was going to help get poor people energy efficient appliances. If
good.
I have my information right, like the month before Joe leaves after he lost the election, they pump out a bunch of money to this organization, even though it was brand new and had $100. And it's like you could have just given all these people a rebate on their taxes, but like no fridge will be delivered from these hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's just so infuriating. We could do a whole episode on it. It's funny, on one of our Facebook pages, we started a channel exposing Democrat corruption, and I just drop articles that are just Democrat corruption, Democrat corruption, Democrat corruption. And be fair, there's plenty of Republican corruption too, but it's just the Democrats, I think, are so much further off the reservation that it's mind-boggling.
Yeah. Are there any Democrats? I guess I'll ask rhetorically. Are there any Democrats that are not corrupt? And yes, establishment politicians. You got Republicans that are the same way, but honing in on Democrats, has there ever been a good one?
I don't know. Let me delete this comment. Sometimes we get spammers on the pages, especially on Facebook. If anybody wonders, if you see Elon Musk applying to you, that's not really Elon Musk. And that super hot woman that thinks you're interesting is not really a super hot woman.
Does not want to be your friend.
And that's another reason to go to
all
Rumble.
Of your money. Do not talk to her.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Where do we go next, Todd? There's so much ridiculousness to cover this week.
I mean, immigration. We are talking about the border here, Jason. I saw a very compelling argument on the Twitter there. Democrats found a crying woman, a mother, getting arrested by ICE. And so that's it. I don't think we should do any more deportations. We shouldn't be rounding up any more illegals because there were some tears. And you know what? Tears make me feel sad. And so they can all stay. Let's invite more of them in while we're at it. But take a look at this video here, and then I'm just going to read the tweet where I got this from too, because again, this is Democrats that are not living in the same reality as us. They live in some different alternative, propagandized, brainwashed worldview. But here's a woman crying, and so that means we should stop everything.
Oh my God.
I'm convinced they should all stay, Jason, because I am so moved by that. And she's saying, my kids are in school. Help me. What about my children? I know her children can go to school in Mexico.
Yeah, I was going to say Democrats are trying this pull the heartstrings move. And maybe I've just had my heart hardened enough. I see that and I don't care. You know what sticks out to me most about that clip, Todd? What language was she speaking?
Weird, because I could swear that those were American agents arresting her in America, and she's got kids here that go to the school system, but God, that sounded an awful lot like Spanish, and we needed subtitles to tell us what she was saying.
I was going to say, for me, you come here illegally for the free stuff, and they're going to send you home, and you don't even bother to learn the language. And people will call you racist. They'll say Spanish is one of the biggest languages. You don't get to go into another country and not eat and collect all the free stuff, get all the benefits from living here, and don't even put forward the minimal effort of speaking the language. Because I got to say, if I went to like move to a foreign country, like if I'm going to move to France, I better plan on learning some French, you know. And if I'm going to move to another country, I'm going to at least learn something as basic as the language of that country. These folks are so entitled coming here that they don't even bother to do the basics. And then like Democrats play this. And I mean, our audience, like, I mean, folks, let us know in the comments. Does this move you at all? Like, I see this and I'm like, good, send her home. Like, have a nice day.
Yeah, I'm not moved at all. I'm indifferent to her tears. Like, do I feel bad that her life's getting upended? Maybe. But also, she'd made those decisions. And Jason, like you said, if you go somewhere else, I have lived somewhere else. And I went there specifically because it was different. And I was in a Spanish-speaking country, a couple of them. And I went there because I liked that. Like, I wouldn't go to another country and expect to impose all my values on them. It seems so common sense. Like you and I are arguing from an America First perspective. We're also arguing from a principled perspective. Like this is America, we speak English, and if you are in another country, you can speak your language, have your customs, whatever else. Respect that, but then also respect it here. This is not a difficult concept. But I've seen too much of this. Jason, when Trump was inaugurated, we played video clips and we said this will be the play. They're going to show some baby getting ripped out of a mom's arm. They're going to show some crying mother right here. They're not going to show all the violent, illegal, repeat criminal offenders that we're rounding up every single day and who the Trump administration is prioritizing. But you see one clip and you think that's what's happening with all these deportations. So now it needs to stop.
Right. And it's fascinating, too, because the Democrat logic is if I can institute my idiotic idea to make me feel good about myself, because I'll be honest, I think part of this comes from to give them far too much of the benefit of the doubt, this feeling of empathy. These poor people are raised in these poor countries that suck. We've got extra resources here. Why don't we bring them to our country? Like they almost feel guilty that they were born with one of the greatest gifts you could have, which is being born in America. Like you won the lottery. Yes, feel great for that. You were lucky. But they don't extend that to their own house. Like the Democrats, aren't inviting an illegal to come stay in their house. They aren't donating to food shelves or paying for people's groceries. They want this like collective, everybody else's money to help pay for this and cover this. And for some reason, I don't know how, but they feel guilty. Like you should feel blessed that you were born in America. You're also blessed where you can leave America, if it's really that bad. But you don't just get to, like, there are far more poor people in the world than America can take. And it's up to their countries to try to make themselves not poor. And it's kind of like when we talk about these wars, like whatever side you land on any of the wars, like they're not our wars. Like let them solve their problems.
Yeah, you brought up 2 points here. I'm going to see if I can remember both of them here. But Franklin says the Dems can't hear the screaming from the people that were tortured and killed by illegals. So you brought up how they think they're so empathetic. It's a bleeding heart liberal. They just care so much for everybody. But they have zero empathy because they cannot relate at all to the victims or the families of the victims that have been harmed by these people. So if you're saying I support the illegal immigrants, what you are then explicitly saying is I am not supportive of the people that have been harmed by them. And that's who I care about. It's the American citizens that are suffering at the hands of many of these violent illegals. And I'm going to choose Americans every day of the week. I'm not going to feel bad about that. So if that means grabbing this woman here, kicking and screaming and crying and sending her home, good, because I want all of them sent home to protect Americans, especially young women and girls that have been assaulted and all sorts of stuff that happened to them. Where are the feminists? Where are the Dems that say me too? They're very quiet when it comes to that. And Jason, the other thing you talked about, oh, shoot, I knew I was going to forget it. Oh, we're the wealthiest nation, Jason. We can afford it. We can take all these people in. Can you afford a mortgage right now because all of the illegals here have made home prices go up? Can you afford to live in your same community or maybe move out and go somewhere else because you're competing for housing with all these people? Do you feel any wealthier with all these people in the country? You're competing now for jobs, which lower wages for these low skill entry level positions. We might have a GDP, but GDP doesn't mean that you individually in America are any better off or deserve to have your neighborhood destroyed by all of these invaders. And that's what this is. This is an invasion. We are in a Cold War and only one side is fighting right now.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of times when we talk about this, we like say, oh, we don't want the violent illegals. I think the violence that this woman in this picture inflicted on us is as bad or worse than some of the other violent stories we cover. Because the fact of the matter is, people that are coming here to live off the free government teat are not like, they come to our country not with the goal of, I want the freedom and opportunity to make, produce, and give back to the others. They come here as elite, wanting to siphon off our system and are only worried about how much resources they can extract from that system. The fact that she only speaks Spanish means that school, if her kids only speak Spanish, now that school, in addition to giving her SNAP, paying for housing, covering her medical bills, that school has to actually pay for a teacher that can talk in their language because she's not even going to bother to learn her own language. It was like there was a clip of Andrew Cuomo talking about there's 187 languages spoken in our school. Like, that's a good thing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now, all these schools need to have people that speak 187 languages. Like, how much of a burden is that on the rest? And if you think of it, like, I use our business as an example. We have a small group of guys. We work together. We all do things. And the only way it works is when everybody in the group is pushing to generate revenue or content or whatnot. When people come in for the free ride, it always fails. And what I would argue that what this woman is doing by coming here not to contribute, but to extract from the system is more violent than anything, because you get 5 of her, 10 of her, 15 of here. Like, that just creates a drain that we can't have. And we should all, it is nothing wrong saying, I want to work to produce. Like, for me, I want to produce to make sure I can help make my kids' lives better, my grandkids' lives better. There is nothing wrong with that. That is virtuous. That's what you should be doing. And I'm not saying I don't want to help the grander scheme or donate, like we donate to the church. We do different things with that. But the same is true for your country. Your first goal should be America needs to take care of Americans. And before we look at bringing in more people that need help, it's crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing that helps frame it up, Jason, you talk about how she's more violent in a sense. This woman is a thief. You go to work every single day as an American. The government steals your money. She is the recipient of that stolen money. She is stealing from you your time, your labor, your energy, your resources. Leech on the system, yes, I'd take it a step further and say she is an active thief, criminal participant in the system. They all need to go home. They all need to go. We have gone past where we used to live with this compromise of, all right, we got a couple million here. They're working the farms. They're doing some of these jobs. I think all Americans were putting up with that, and we would have tolerated it, except Joe Biden ushered in so many people that contract was violated. And now I don't want to take the time. No one can take the time to vet everyone in here. So now they all have to go. They can cry all they want. I am not moved 1 minute. I want them all packing. Tears, no tears, adios.
Well, and it's funny. I think like 80% of Americans, if like any of these violent people need to go, reports are different on how many of the non-violent people. I think there you get closer to 60%, depending on what numbers you believe. But I think the majority of Americans are starting to land on, especially when they see these videos and these violent protests and guys waving American or Mexican flags while they're burning down LA. It's like, maybe it is time for you to go home. So you'd think Democrats would be starting to get the joke, but should we show what Maxwell Frost said? This was just from a day or two ago.
Republican colleagues who say, I don't want any undocumented people in this country, I actually agree with you. So let's document every single one of them with a speedy path to citizenship. That's how we fix this problem.
Whoa. He went green.
There we go.
There's the solution. Isn't he nice, Jason? He agrees with us. He doesn't want undocumented people here either.
Now, just so you all understand the math on this, if you come in here and you're reliant on welfare, public services, are you going to vote for the conservative that says you need to get off your butt and go work? Or are you going to vote for the Democrat that is going to fight for you to get more free stuff?
I got to think about that one.
It's a pretty complicated solution. So the other thing that's funny, and a lot of it's been gaining traction this week, when you count all these illegals, right now they estimate like 20 seats in the House are in Democrat states because of their illegal head count. So they have so many illegals that they get extra seats in the House of Representatives. Now, some will say, oh, well, Texas and Florida too. So maybe there's math. The problem is we don't know how many illegals and where they are. So it could be true either way. I personally believe that the Democrat cities and states have far more illegals in them than the conservative cities and states. And I believe because of that, you'll see that big swing. But can you imagine how much easier it'd be to get Trump's agenda through if we had 20 more seats in the House, Todd?
Well, you say that, and I know where you're going with that, but I'm also reminded that Trump has the House and Senate right now, had the House and Senate before. But Jason, I'm wondering, So we don't know how many there are in this country, but we also know enough to apportion out seats for the House of Representatives and count in the Electoral College. So that's an interesting one right there. I don't know, but also we're going to give you this many seats.
Right. Yeah. And everybody, we've been saying all along, this is a goal of the Democrat Party to replace us, to make them all citizens. And people say, oh, you're crazy, rah, rah, rah. And then I will say, too, look at that crowd behind Maxwell Frost. And we should almost find that graph. Did you see that one going around Twitter when they said the relative happiness of conservatives and liberals?
You can, happiness, mental health. There is a direct correlation to your worldview and underpinning philosophies. Like if you lean conservative, you're more well-adjusted, healthier, happier. And if you're leftist, they make you miserable. This ideology makes you miserable. It makes you jealous of everything, envious, it fills you with hate. And they're all awful. Yeah, and every study shows it. I didn't need stats. I didn't need any polls, but yeah, it confirms what we knew all along.
So we got another 80-20 issue. You got idiots like Maxwell Frost. They let them all in. You've got all these guys saying that. Todd, what do you think? Do you think the Democrat Party is going to lean into or away from this messaging?
They are doubling down on every insane issue, whether it's going after children, whether it's inviting illegals into this country. They're oddly quiet about Iran, Israel, because they don't really know how to feel about that. They love foreign wars, but it involves Israel, and it's a little touchy for Democrats to figure that one out. But no, they haven't changed a second. Like, there was nothing to learn when they lost the election. I always make this point. Are Democrats going to learn from their election loss? No, they're not. They're going to double down on all of this because this is a religion to them. They're not going to be like, well, Jesus died for my sins and rose from the dead. And like, if you were to, I'm going to stop believing that because I lost the election, like, you'd be crazy. But that's how they feel about all of this stuff. They're not going away. They're not learning anything. This is their entire worldview in a nutshell. And Jason, the idea of Democrats just being good people, would Democrats offer citizenship to people if they were afraid they would vote America first?
No, we saw how they reacted to the South African farmers that were let in. Mm-hmm. They let in 50 South African white farmers who would probably vote more for conservatives. You would have thought they let in like a camp full of serial killers. I think we got to play that commercial too, Todd. And should we just play this, not say anything, and ask our audience what they think or feel when they watch this commercial?
I'm deleting a comment here. She's gone. Yeah, don't talk to Natalie. Here's our ad. Here we go.
I had a really good time today.
Yeah, me too. I really look.
What are you doing?
She's coming with us.
What are you talking about? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're rounding up illegals.
She was born here. She's a citizen.
I don't care. She looks like one of them. But don't worry. When she's in prison in El Salvador, she'll have lots of company.
All right, folks.
I'm celebrating that they're supposed to fearmonger. I'm like, good. They found one. Get rid of her.
I was going to say, okay, folks, let us know in the chat when you watch that. What's your first thought? My first thought was, I wonder who that dude is and how I vote for him. Like, other than the creepy sniffing, he's like, we are hunting down every illegal and sending them home. I support this. Like, I like that guy.
I want him in every seat for Congress.
Right. And so I love the imagery. Like, let's take an attractive female. Oh, she was born here. Which we know if you're born here, you are not being deported. Like, this just in, folks. That, like, there's no truth to that. They're not sending people home that were deported. And it's funny, too. So if you have parent that's here illegally with child that was born here, Democrats say, well, they get to stay now. Well, no, you can't do that because that's going to incentivize more to happen. So if they send home just the parent, you're separating the family. And if they send home the kid because that's what the parent wants, then all of a sudden you're deporting an American citizen. And I don't know how dumb some of these Democrat voters need to be where that lands on them, but they're creating this Gestapo like Trump's thing. And it was funny. I saw a fascinating like tweet that just summed it up where it's like, I've never heard of a kidnapper that sends you home. Like all these people are being kidnapped by the Trump administration and they're being disappeared. I like if I go to El Salvador or one of these countries, go to Honduras and I get kidnapped, they're not going to pick me up and drive me back to my home in Minnesota. Like that's not what's happening. They are not being disappeared. They're being returned to their homeland.
But they had to
insane.
prey on all these words that we got used to with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Yeah, she's getting deported to an El Salvador prison. Why? I have no idea. Is she actually a criminal and she needs to get sent to a prison? Or is she really just getting sent to her nation of origin? If she needs to go to a prison in a foreign country, then why is she here and why do we want her here? But Jason,
Right.
I recognize this guy. I recognize the tone of the ad. We actually played another clip when this ran before the election here. Do you remember this one?
Oh! Sorry, you can't do that.
What the hell, man? How'd you get in here?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning porn nationwide.
You can't tell me what to do. Get out of my bedroom, you creep!
I won the last election, so it's my decision. I'm just gonna watch and make sure you don't finish illegally.
Hey, is that the same dude?
It is the same. When I saw this other ad, I was like, I recognize the tone and like, I'm your representative. Like, yeah, so they ran this before the election, and I think we played it on our podcast when that aired. So that's an older one, but they're bringing back the theme. They're bringing back this dude. This guy is making a great living now being the mean old white guy.
Well, and I think the young guy, the gooner, is which is funny. When we first saw this clip, one of the young guys we work with said, "Oh, they're going after the gooners now," and I'm like, "What's a gooner?" And because I didn't know, I'm old, right? And evidently, that is the name for the young lads that live in their parents' basements who can't get a date, so they have to take things in their own hands. Evidently, that's the term they give them now. So yeah, it's like same dude that they're
Same
running.
haircut, same just whatever.
And I gotta say,
Hello,
same thing
Kev.
like that. Hey, Kev's here. Where you been? You've been over watching Bannon, haven't you, Kev?
Yeah, Bannon's going after Fox News.
Although I gotta say, Trump and Bannon, I think, are mending fences. Bannon was at the White House yesterday, so which is good. I think Trump working with Bannon is a good thing. And yeah, Republicans were like that when I was a kid. Some of that I could actually go with, like
no argument there. Times have changed though. That was 40 years ago. But Democrat voters, like the theme of the show is these people do not live in reality. They're like, yeah, that sounds about right today. America First and that guy they do have some overlap because we want that gal deported.
Well, and I gotta say too, here's what I think's funny. So you look at that girl too, relatively well-adjusted looking female, kind of cute, kind of athletic, and you compare that to the blue-haired cat ladies. Like we should put a tweet of that one gal they gave $20 million to do mail outreach.
Yeah, so here's the Olivia Juliana that paid for. Yeah, this is not quite the same figure. I don't know. We're gonna get censored on Facebook for body shaming, probably no.
Yeah, we probably can't talk about cute Latinas, but I think at some point then when you get the when you get these unattractive liberal women, like that might get them on the side of immigration when it's like, oh yeah, they're bringing in all the hot Latinas. So speaking about the Democrats, and we were talking about how they're messaging they're on the wrong side of everything. So they realized what they failed in was in the young male white vote. College educated, not college educated. It turns out after 30, 40, 50 years of telling men being masculine and being a provider and all of these things was bad, that the young males, give them credit, Gen Z, the millennials are starting to become way more based. They're like, no, I just want to be a regular dude. I don't want to date a girl with a penis. Like, no, get away from me with all this ridiculous stuff. So the Democrat convention, we covered at the top how they were broke and on the wrong side of everything. They hired this overweight, disabled girl to go to campuses. And evidently she's a Democrat influencer. I've seen her give some speeches about body positivity or whatnot. And now a month into this, they're like, wait a second, we've given her $20 million and we are not moving the needle at all with our constituents. Looks like Todd's looking for her.
Oh, I looked her up because I swear she was a lesbian too. So they hired some, I even hesitate to say overweight on Facebook, but she is not healthy looking and she's a lesbian. And they were like, yes, that's the gal that's going to go target the based, young, fit dudes to vote Democrat. And there is, if you did a Venn diagram, there would be her over here and them over here. She has nothing to offer these guys, but yes, let's pay her millions of dollars.
It's just so, like, I love it though, because the more the Democrats continue with this idiotic messaging, the better it is for us, because conservative values, like, people at the end of the day, you reach a point where you need to look out for yourself and your country. And as things get less and less affordable, as things get more and more rough, this messaging just falls flat.
And I did see a hilarious comment on the Twitter as well. So they're like, this ad's going to backfire for women because you've got all these mids out there that vote Democrat that are like, wait a second, you're going to get rid of these hot Latinas that the guys are all going after? Is there a little more room for me now in America? So, I mean, that won't happen. These lib women cannot be saved. But I did like that comment to be like, yeah, they're taking all the hotties away, and now you might have a chance.
Right? Oh, the invitees she made to the guys were rejected. We have a funny audience.
By just lack of options?
Yeah, exactly.
We're definitely
where do we travel to next, Todd?
You know, I think we're going to save Tucker and Ted Cruz folks for Rumble only today, but we got a few comments from the people that don't live in reality telling you still, even though everything's come out now, that Joe Biden is actually very healthy, was healthy then, is healthy now. Donald Trump's the one you got to look out for because he needs to pass another psychology cognitive test. But should we start with Jasmine Crockett telling us how wonderful Joe Biden was?
Well, yeah, and this clip just came out. This just happened. So I'm thinking if I'm a Democrat, and I don't know if we have the video, but like even in his last year, like how many times did we show like the blank stare, Joe Biden? Yeah, this one was my favorite. There is clearly an old man whose brain was cooked. That was the last Juneteenth. Like, he's fried. He's done. Jake Tapper's come out and said he's done. A bunch of prominent Democrats have come out and said he's done. They need to apologize and say, like, hey, well, we're sorry. We let a vegetable run the country. The auto pen, all of it should be reversed. But now, Jasmine Crockett decides to double down.
I still stand by the decision to stand with President Joe Biden and then ultimately standing with Vice President Kamala Harris. And I'll tell you why. The average person has not been given the level of access that the average member of Congress has to the president. I never saw anything in Joe Biden that made me wonder whatsoever. And it's not that I was with Joe Biden every single.
Okay, I'm just going to say what she said. She had more access to Joe Biden. The access we had was bad enough. We just showed the clip. Joe Biden is not even there. He is standing up. That's about all you can say about Joe Biden. We all saw what was not good. And again, the Jake Tappers of the world are reporting differently now. So she's telling you that I was closer to Biden. So I am lying even more if I weren't lying enough already about how far gone he was. But no, I had special access and just fine.
Day, that's for sure. But as I talked about my grandparents, the way that I would describe Joe is like, I mean, he's a granddaddy, right? And so like, you know, the way that my granny was when she was younger versus ultimately kind of where she was at 81 when she ended up passing away, mentally she was still there, but like her attitude about certain things, like whether or not she was looking to be as polished or cared to be as polished, or even if she moved as fast, it just wasn't there. We all slow down. But I will tell you that I will take.
Jason, how many times did we say, gosh, I wish Joe Biden simply walked faster?
That was clearly my number one concern.
Yeah, that's what bothers me. Joe Biden lost a step. He's just walking slower. Like, we're not talking literally here, Jasmine Crockett.
Right.
A broken, or however they want to describe Joe Biden, over Donald Trump any given day. Because number one, I know Joe Biden's heart. And I can tell you that when you look at the legislation that he was able to push forward with, this wasn't legislation that was about him and his rich friends. It was legislation that was for the good of the American people. And when you look at the people that he surrounded himself with, even if you're saying that there was a mentally deficient Joe Biden, I know that he absolutely had a mental acuity that is supreme when it comes to comparing him to Donald Trump, because
even she doesn't believe her lies. She still has to qualify, like, even if he wasn't all there, Donald Trump is still worse. Make up your mind, Jasmine. Was he good or was he not good?
Can I just say too, Todd, and this might be more to the ladies in the audience, what in the hell is up with the shoulder pads?
Are they coming back?
Like, I think watch it. It's got like these high shoulder pads. Didn't Gene Simmons used to wear some stuff like that in Kiss, or was it Paul Stanley? I forget who it was, but I don't know. We can get back to listening to the wisdom of Jasmine.
I do like this point here. Yeah, Kev had a couple comments, but Dems are terrible on podcasts. They can only speak in sound bites. Like, this is it. This is why they don't debate. This is why they'll never talk to you in politics. Kev nails it. Like, they will say one or two lines that got fed to them from the television or social media, and that's it. Ask them to defend a position. They can't. They've never even thought about defending their position. They heard one thing, it sounded good, and they run with that. And again, Jasmine Crockett is the mouthpiece for the Democrat Party now, and even she can't go a sentence further than that. And I did like this, though, but we should give Biden a pass because he's a grandpa. Yeah,
he's a grandpa.
Checkmate. Joe Biden's a grandpa.
At least he kept good people around him. He kept people that would keep us safe in this country. He kept people that would make sure that even as tensions were rising all around the world, that we were keeping those tempered. He was able to understand with his level of mental acuity who our friends were. He was not getting us into unwarranted tariff wars and things like that. So
I don't even know what that means, because I remember Russia invading Ukraine. I remember a lot of talk about the Taiwan Strait. I saw Afghanistan. I don't even know what she's trying to say here, because I'm like, Jasmine, we are everywhere under Joe Biden.
I have no words. Like, I don't know how anybody can watch this woman and believe what she's saying. Like, she should just be out there saying, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, Joe wasn't all there. We didn't want to disrupt the country. But and you know what? I will even go so far as say Reagan at the end of his second term, he was cooked, and Republicans should not have covered that up. But at the end of the day, for somebody like Jasmine Crockett to get out and just knowingly lie to your face, and then why do you think Democrats are growing broke? Why do you think nobody's contributing? It's not just USAID. It's that she's telling you, don't believe your eyes and ears. Like, what you saw from Joe Biden wasn't what was happening. It just blows me away.
I just can't. I can't. This woman, people believe it. They listen to her. They're like, yes, Jasmine Crockett speaking truth to power. This is all a lie. We could spend an hour parsing through every word and tell you exactly how it's a lie, and you still have Dem voters out there saying they have the Trump ban.
Yeah, it's kind of like Padilla. We broke that down. I think it was last week. Padilla rushes the stage with Kristi Noem, and he's still crying on the Senate floor, like, "Oh, they arrested me." I'm like, good. It turns out you can't charge the head of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right. I got this clip for fun. I think, should this be our last one, Jason? I got a little Hank Johnson. Hank, who said that Guam would capsize. That of intellect in Congress, but he decided to write a little song about Trump's immigration policies. And folks, if you didn't know he was in Congress, you would think he was playing on a street corner. And I am not saying that hyperbolically or exaggerating. I literally mean that. He looks like he belongs on the street. He sounds like he belongs on the street. And instead, people down in, I don't know, where is he from, Georgia? They actually sent him to Washington, D.C.
With a new guitar and with some thoughts about that old song, Hey Joe, to give some commentary on where we are now. Hey Trump, where you going with that gun in your hand? Hey, Trump. Where you going with that gun in your hand?
I can't. So it just continues like that forever. And again, we all hear it. This is out of tune. They recorded it, they played it, and they thought, yeah, this sounds really good, and they published it.
I gotta say, when you wonder why Democrats are broke, they're on the wrong side of every issue. And in the chat too, they were talking about Jasmine. Like every time you see her, she's got a new voice or inflection. Sometimes she's ghetto Jasmine, sometimes she's hood Jasmine, sometimes she's articulate Jasmine. Hillary Clinton does that all the time. It is so awful. But Hank Johnson, like, don't you have a staffer that should come up and go like, perhaps we tune the guitar, perhaps we do the guitar, and nobody cared enough. He actually thought this was good. And Jen and I, hey, Todd, you don't have to tell me if you and Miranda have this thing. So you go somewhere and you see somebody and they're wearing or doing something ridiculous, like big fat person with revealing clothes, or you know, husband, like she makes fun of me because I am often dressed poorly. And you look at them and you think, don't somebody in your life, doesn't somebody love them enough to say, don't do that? Like, that looks ridiculous. Like, Todd, do you and the wife ever have discussions like that?
All the time. And yeah, I'm usually the one that needs to dress up a little better or get that stain off my shirt. I just blame the kids. I'm like, it was clean before, and then I held the kids, so now it's messy. Like, I always have an excuse, at least I can pawn it off. But who did they think this was going to play to? Who was going to resonate with this? Everything they do is ridiculous. This is so bad. It is so bad. These are theater kids. They love their attention. That's all this is. But you know what this speaks to, Jason? The voters in his district. They said, yes, I'm going to vote for Hank Johnson repeatedly.
Yeah, and actually, you hit a great theme too. So I like to say on the show and in life, Democrats think they are morally and intellectually superior to you. Part of why you can never get through to a liberal, to a Democrat, to the crazy blue hairs is because they think, well, A, I'm smarter than you. And even if I'm not, I'm just a better person than you. But I will add another layered component onto that, and that is the theater kids. And the entire party is run by theater kids. There's a famous line, I can't remember who used it, like, politics is just Hollywood for ugly people. And if you look at all these theater kids and you think back to your high school, so you had people that like were in the band or played sports or whatnot, and then you had the theater kids that were always kind of the weird kids that were creative. They never seemed to be that good at actually doing anything. You throw the theater kid in shop class, they couldn't figure it out. You threw them in the auto tech class if you had it, like they couldn't change a tire, but they could go tell you how they felt and act the part and all that, but they could never actually do anything. Those people are now leading your Democrat Party. It's crazy.
Yeah, Francis asked, how old is Hank? He is 70. I just had to Google it. But you make a great point, Jason, about the feels. And yes, they are theater kids. They have never accomplished anything. I don't think a Democrat in Congress has ever actually built a business or directed people successfully. But they also don't care about that, minor detail. Are you successful in life? Jasmine Crockett said the same thing. It's about how Joe Biden felt in his heart. Joe Biden was a good man. He surrounded himself by good people. It felt good to have Joe Biden as president. At no point do Democrats ever ask the question, was it successful? Is this a good thing? What are the outcomes? They never tackle that stuff. It is all about, how does this make me feel? Do I feel good about this? And that's it. That is it. And that's actually interesting, Jason, too. Like when you talk about women specifically, women and weak men don't ask the question, is this good or is this right? They ask the question, how will others perceive me if I adopt this approach? If I say this thing, too many out there are just like, I want to conform and fit in and not have people dislike me. So I will say the wrong thing or this evil thing, and I'll go on board with it because it's better than me getting called out by another person.
Well, and it's funny, too, when Jasmine said Joe Biden's a good man. Joe Biden's not a good man.
No.
His family was extremely corrupt. It's probably one of the most corrupt political parties. Go back early in his career, the credit card companies. Like he passed all sorts of horrible legislation that benefited them. They were his biggest donors. Whole family cried in the Biden crime family. Don't think they'll ever be prosecuted, which is a separate issue, but they were awful. Like, yeah, Joe Biden was never like, they paint him as this grandfatherly guy. No, he wasn't. Like, Joe Biden used to be his nanny and he started banging her. Like, I mean, he was not showers with his daughter allegedly. Like, Joe Biden was not a good man. So, but anyways, we should probably wrap up. I just dropped a tweet that Padilla just dropped. We should probably show that to wrap up the first hour. So, we do an hour on Facebook, YouTube, those channels. We switch over to Rumble only for the last half hour. Best half hour of your week, hanging out with Kevin, Fally, and Dee Dee, and K-Gun Girl, and all the fun people over there. And if you guys don't know, Rumble is a platform kind of like YouTube. They do videos over there. Doesn't pay the greatest as a content creator, but they give us free speech. Hey, and you can subscribe when you're over there. Paul Reeves gave out a bunch of paid subs, and we've had other people subscribe, so we really appreciate that. But for those watching us on other platforms, if you want to get to the spicy stuff, we're going to go do that over on Rumble. So we appreciate you tuning in. Do us a favor, like, comment, share. But I just wanted to touch on this before we left. If you can zoom in on it, Todd. This is insane. Somebody just sent it to me. So a week later, like, the Alex Padilla story has been completely debunked. We played last week the videos of CNN saying it was stupid and all that. He literally just tweeted this out. I asked a question and ended up in handcuffs. If this is how the Trump administration treats a U.S. senator in broad daylight, imagine what they're going to do to immigrants behind closed doors. We cannot stay silent. We will not back down. No, Padilla acted like an a-hole and charged the stage without identifying himself. And even if he had identified himself, his conduct was not okay. He was right to be hauled out in handcuffs. They think Democrats are stupid enough to fall for this.
Well, they are correct. Democrats are stupid enough to fall for this. He kind of missed, though. He just segues from asking a question to getting handcuffed. What happened in between was he stormed and shouted and resisted the security detail's efforts to say, not now, buddy, quiet down, go wait over there. So there was a little bit of activity in between there that after he resisted their approaches and stormed back and kept shouting and interrupting the entire thing, and then forcefully resisted as they were trying to subdue him. So there was a little bit of in between here between asking a question and ended up in handcuffs. But they're just going to gloss over that because, like we said, Dems are stupid. They're going to believe this. My favorite part of the story, Jason, though, when we talked about it last week, is nobody in the room knew who he was. You had Washington journalists in the press room with Kristi Noem, and this big Hispanic, physically imposing guy walks in and starts shouting and going towards the front of the room where Noem is speaking. No one knew who he was. And he's out there like, I'm a U.S. senator. I can't believe they did that. And it's like, also an important detail that no one knew you were a U.S. senator when that was happening. You could have been anybody. So I love the hit to his ego. Like, sorry, buddy, no one cares about you. No one knows who you are, and it's their job to know who you are.
And I got to say, just a good point in life. If you're ever the person saying, don't you know who I am? There is a almost 100% chance you're an asshole. I'm just saying.
Correct.
Like, I have never once seen somebody pull out the don't you know who I am card and they are a good person that you want to hang out with or engage with, whether it's at a restaurant or anywhere in life. Like, never be the guy that says, don't you know who I am? It's crazy.
Yeah, and don't get my hopes up, Padilla. Don't be like, if this is how they treat a U.S. senator, putting them in handcuffs, what are they doing to the illegals? Hopefully putting them in handcuffs too, and then taking it a step further and putting them on an airplane. So I hope that's what's happening. He's trying to make this sound bad. Like, this sounds great to me. Yeah, or raid their homes at night, put them in handcuffs, fly them home. That sounds fantastic.
As we say in the business, that's what I voted for. All right. Don't you know who I am, Mark? All right, well, let's wrap up. Facebook, YouTube. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. See you next week. I encourage everybody, go over to Rumble. We got a little bit more stuff. We got to go over this Tucker Cruz interview and this. Well, we'll talk about it on the flip side,
If
folks.
you're
Thanks for
on
tuning in.
Facebook, the feed is shutting down, but the podcast is not. Facebook audience, head over to rumble.com. Look out for the American Tribune. That's our channel, the American Tribune. Podcast is still going. Jason's still here. I'm still here. Our whole Rumble audience is over there. Rumble.com, the American Tribune. We are back in 1 minute.
Todd.
And Rumble community. Jason, I'm going to keep us up on YouTube today.
No way. You're going to try it?
We're going to do it. I don't think we're getting too spicy.
Well, I might be. Folks, welcome to the Rumble only part. Sorry, I clicked on a different window over here. Will Tanner, like some of our audience who knows Will Tanner is going to appreciate this, but he just dropped a note. Jesse Waters just started following him on Twitter. And for those who don't follow Will on the X, like he does these threads, he talks a lot about history in South Africa and different tariffs and things. Jesse Waters follows him. How cool is that?
He's going to be on Fox pretty soon, Jason.
He was on the Matt Gaetz show. We thought that was a couple of years ago. So kind of fun inside baseball on the business end of things. But now we got to dive into this Tucker Ted Cruz thing. And Todd hasn't watched all of it. Todd's seen some clips. I watched all of it. I want to give some background on this. I love Tucker. I also love Ted Cruz. There are things I don't like about both of them. Ted Cruz seems like a pretty good guy. I really listen, like he has his own podcast, The Verdict with Ted Cruz, and I enjoy listening to it, especially when they're talking about legal stuff. Like he's a lawyer, he clerked for Supreme Court justices. There are many parts about stuff that Cruz dives into. And they were going to get together to talk about the Israel-Iran conflict. And I saw a couple clips going around the Twitter before it was released. And then I saw Ted Cruz's response. And I'm like, Tucker was being kind of asking some gotcha questions. Cruz, in his, excuse me, in his response, defense of what he was saying was kind of over the top and kind of gross, in my opinion. Like he was not doing it very well. I talked about a little bit on the Wayne Dupree podcast, like, oh, I got to watch this. And my wife, like, she doesn't do politics much anymore. Like, it just stresses her out. But she's like, I'd really like to see that. Like, two smart guys that we like hearing talk, having this conversation. And I watched the video, and I'm just going to tell you, folks, don't take my word for it. You need to go find it. It's on YouTube. You need to watch the whole thing. You will walk away going, what the actual F? Todd, your thoughts?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, and again, we're going to go after everybody. That's what we do. Ted Cruz is very good at what he does when it comes to legal conversations. He does great clips when it comes to the hearings and going after the corruption in Washington, D.C. This was not the Ted Cruz that we're familiar with. When he was asked about Israel and AIPAC and this niche conversation that nobody ever really wants to talk about in America, different person right there. That kind of tells you that he is hiding something, lying about something, kind of giving up the game here. Eye-opening content for sure, though, Jason. I mean, no one as good as Ted Cruz should walk into Tucker's studio and be that demolished. He didn't know what to say half the time.
Well, and I got to say, too, because like Kev, who follows politics very closely, I'm not interested in either guy and think Tucker owes Ted an apology. I'm going to tell you, Kev, and I'll say this directly to you. You need to, if you haven't, and let me know if you have, you need to go watch this interview. I likened it, and I didn't say anything to my wife, and she hasn't been following it all that closely. And they sat down, and it was all like, they didn't seem to edit it. Like, it was long form interview. And I just let Jen process it. And then halfway through, we went out, took the dogs out, and I'm like, oh, what do you think? And she's like, this is eye opening. And what it reminded me of, do you remember when that video of Prince Andrew came out and he was talking about how he didn't really rape people and sweat didn't work and that kind of thing? And it was like you could clearly tell something was up and something was not right. And I don't know what it is. I don't want to accuse Ted Cruz of anything. I still like Ted Cruz. I will support him. But this was really weird. And Tucker wasn't asking got you questions. Like he clipped a couple that were kind of gotcha, like what's the population of Iran? But for the most part, he was doing a pretty clean, pretty straightforward interview. And Ted Cruz, just something's weird. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and with the gotcha, we have that clip here asking the population of Iran and some other like basic fact stuff here. It's important for Ted Cruz to know that. That's kind of the point. That's the exposure here. He doesn't care. You should be briefed on stuff like this if you're going to make decisions that might impact everyone in Iran, certainly affect the American people. You should have surface level knowledge, a little bit of Google information in your brain before you go out and try to regime change overseas. I want Ted Cruz. I need Ted Cruz to know that there are like 90 million people in Iran. For him to sit there and say, I actually have no idea. Like, what else don't you know than Ted Cruz? Or what else are you lying about? So, no, I don't take it as a gotcha at all. I see this as like, do you know about this place that you're trying to get us into?
Right. And now what clips did you grab from it? Todd and I were just putting this together this morning.
Yeah, we got 3 clips, folks. They are not titled very well, so I think we're going to shoot from the hip. We'll play one, Jason, and then we can break it down.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two,
hold on.
I'm not holding on.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
So is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation
They're the
God's
descendants of
referring
Abraham.
to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected.
He's the prime minister.
Right.
What?
But just like, America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
This is silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
that's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
I got to say, some of these clips we've grabbed, and I dropped the link to the full video in the Rumble chat to watch it. And, K-Gun Girl, I wouldn't call it an interview. I watch it. I'll be curious what K-Gun's girls' thoughts were on the interview. This is where I'd love to have like the live chat with the audience. Like, this was at the end of the interview. Tucker was talking about like Ted was giving his reason why he's so pro-Israel, and he's like, well, the Bible tells me to. And it was funny. I wasn't saying nothing. My wife, she's actually doing a reread of the Bible, one of those things. And she like that was one of the points where we went outside after they had that exchange, and he's like, nowhere in the Bible does it say you have to support the political legal entity that is Israel. Like, and it's funny because we had a good conversation. Like, part of what Jesus, my understanding of the Bible, I could be wrong, but Jesus, part of it was people were worshiping the church more than they were worshiping God. And that was part of what Jesus's message was. No, no, no. Your holy entity is not the church, or it's not the church, it's God. And when I heard him talking about Israel, I'm like, this is such a twist. And yeah, I didn't know what to think of it. Todd, what do you think? You're kind of a churchy guy.
Yeah, churchy guy here. I mean, setting aside church, though, I'm going to go into like the interview format itself. So Kev's taking a different approach here. He says no one will ever sit down with Tucker again if he's going to harp on chapter bibliography on every topic nuance here. Again, I haven't seen the whole interview, so my comments might be off base here, but I watched this clip and I see Tucker Carlson trying to ask Ted Cruz, why Israel? Why do we support Israel as a nation? And Ted launches into the Christian defense of that, which fine, if that's what informs Ted Cruz is his Christianity. And then Tucker is trying to ascertain, as far as I can tell here, like, well, what do you mean by Israel? And Ted Cruz took that as like, what do you mean? What do I mean by Israel? Like Israel. And Tucker's like, that's a political entity. It's also a group of people. These are two different things. Are we talking the political structure, the government of Israel, the nation of Israel as it exists as a nation, or are we talking about the Jewish people that happen to reside in Israel? I think that's an important distinction there. Tucker is asking multiple times, and Ted, again, smart guy, must have understood what Tucker was asking here. Are you talking about the people or the nation, the political structure? And he just wouldn't touch it. So I don't know. I appreciated the line of question. Does Tucker come across that way a little like gotcha or poking holes or trying to get too in the weeds? Maybe, but also can Ted Cruz just like answer the question? So I don't know, Jason. That's my take. I got to see the full interview here. If this is at the end of it, they're probably like over each other too. And Tucker's just like, I've had it with Ted. Just tell me what you mean. And Ted's over there just kind of stonewalling still.
Yeah, it starts. Well, let's get to the other clips. Let's see what else we got.
See an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
Unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather
You haven't supported
stunning.
the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine.
I do have to say, Jason, again, as just as an outsider seeing some of these, not for the first time, but no context, whenever someone starts shouting in a debate or a conversation, sometimes that's a giveaway that they are trying to compensate for maybe like real ideas. And so if I speak louder, I'm going to be more convincing. I see some of that from Ted Cruz here as well.
I got to say, in watching the interview, and I've consumed a lot of Ted Cruz content. Like I say, anytime there's a legal thing, he's one of the podcasts I'll throw on to listen to. The Verdict with Ted Cruz, recommended highly. Ted Cruz, one of his famous lines is when you have the facts on your side, you hammer the facts. When you don't, you hammer the table. Meaning one of the tells when people don't have the factual backing is that they become louder and more animated. And it was funny because when we were watching this, Jen looked at me and goes, isn't there some Ted Cruz line? Like, when you have the facts, you pound the facts. When you don't have the facts, you pound the table. And Ted Cruz's thesis was Joe Biden, with the bad removal from Afghanistan, made Vladimir Putin think he could take back over the land that he knew he wanted to take. The other thing is there was fascinating discussion about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that was sending natural gas and got blown up and nobody knows who was. Fascinating conversation watching Ted, and Tucker's like, So do you support it being blown up? Like, did the U.S. blow it up? Wouldn't that be bad if we blew it up? And Ted's like, well, no. I mean, it's a good thing it happened, but no, we shouldn't be doing that. And Tucker's whole point in the questioning was, like, how much should we be involved in these other countries and what happens with the outcomes, that kind of thing. It was crazy.
Yeah, the other thing that's important, I think this is starting to become more of a mainstream concept. When we think of foreign war, every American's just like, why are we there? This doesn't pertain to us. But Tucker's humanizing it too. He's like, Ted, you supported a conflict that got 1 million people killed. And I don't know the facts in Ukraine. I don't know if anybody knows the facts about how many people have died, but displacement, casualties, deaths, because we supported financially, and I would imagine militarily, Ukraine's effort against Russia here. People died because of that. Ted Cruz is sitting in his comfortable office in Washington, D.C., and that's why Trump said Liz Cheney should go to the front lines and have a bullet whiz past her head before she makes these decisions. Ted Cruz is not affected whatsoever in the negative getting people killed in Ukraine. He doesn't even think about it. He doesn't lose sleep about it. He supported a war effort that's getting people slaughtered. So Tucker bringing that fact to the conversation, you supported an effort that got 1 million children killed somewhere else. Someone else's kids died for your cause. And again, that's when Ted starts hammering the table, like you say, Jason. But I love that this is now a mainstream talking point. This is more and more how people think. People are getting killed. I don't want people to get killed. Wars are necessary, yes. And needless wars, though, completely unnecessary. And all those Ukrainians are dead. Ted's never apologized once for any of it. And dead Russians, too.
Yeah. Well, let's finish this clip and then we'll do
I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So I'm like, that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry. Matter, or do you just throw out like if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States.
Okay,
it was crazy. Play the last one and then we'll wrap this up.
Living around, by the way.
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people living around?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying.
Doesn't that bring you back to like second grade? I'm not stupid. You're stupid. You don't know anything, Tucker.
Well, and let's finish this clip and then I'll kind of clarify.
To murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
So to frame up the conversation they were having, Ted Cruz was giving the reason why we should be involved in Iran is because they attempted to kill President Trump. Tucker pressed him and goes, that's a pretty big charge. And for those familiar with my position, I think if we want to get involved in Iran, we should declare war, go wipe out Iran, and move forward. I think every time we try to do this, stick our toe in the water, be it Afghanistan or anything else, it never goes right. The other point Tucker's making is that when we lead these regime changes in these countries, for some reason, nobody thinks about what happens after that. So we topple this government with these awful people. Like, are they going to like America more or less? are they going to be more inclined to come after America or not? So Ted Cruz, his thesis for why we should be involved in Iran is the Ayatollah is bad and they're trying to kill Trump. Tucker presses him on it earlier in the interview. Like, what do you mean? Why don't we have this evidence presented? Let's declare war. Like, if the leader of a foreign country is trying to kill President Trump, we should go eliminate him. Like, why are we sitting on our hands? Why is this not in front of the American people? And then Ted kind of weasels in, well, that's why we got to support Israel. And it just comes across as really disingenuous in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, the clips can be taken out of context. If you didn't watch the full interview, you saw some of this, your takeaway might be something else. But my goodness, and it does make me wonder, Jason, I like to go to these what ifs. Ted Cruz is really concerned that Iran might be trying to assassinate Trump. Do you think Ted Cruz would try to take out Democrats for trying to assassinate Donald Trump last year? Has he said that?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, and early in the interview, it starts out pretty pleasant where they're talking about things. And then Tucker Carlson, and that's where the relevance at the end of the Nation of Israel, Tucker starts bringing up let's talk about why we're involved with Israel. And like, how much campaign money do you get from AIPAC? How come AIPAC isn't declared a foreign lobbying group? And AIPAC, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, their goal is to improve Israeli American relations, and they consult with the government of Israel, but they want you to believe they're not a foreign entity, so they don't need to register and do all the disclosure. When Tucker just starts asking basic questions like that, Cruz folds. Like, he gets nervous, he starts stammering, he starts falling apart. And Tucker's thesis was like, okay, there's this government with their goals. We don't know what they are and if they follow our interests. Like, if you look at what's happening in Gaza, now in Iran, like, do we want to tack our horses to their wagon? And I, as a MAGA person, like, I don't know if we should be tacking our horse to the government of Israel's wagon. Like, yes, we want to support Israel, the nation, the Israeli people, but we don't want to give them carte blanche. He also asked him questions like, well, how come all, like, we're worried about Iran and secret nuclear stuff? Like, what do you guys know? You know, because you're in the top secret stuff. What do we know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Well, nothing. Okay, wait. So we're mad that Iran is not doing it, but we're okay not knowing what Israel knows. And then Cruz makes a point about, Tucker brings up like, hey, we give them $3 billion a year. What do we get for that? Oh, well, they're our friends and our allies. And he's like, great. Well, what do they give us? Well, they share the information from Mossad. Oh, okay. Do we give them any information? Oh, yeah, we share a lot of intelligence with them. So we have to pay them to be our friends and share the intelligence back and forth. Like, it's a very, very one-way show. And I found the entire interview very unsettling. I think that was the word that I would use to describe it. I would encourage our viewers, like, take time. I dropped the link in the Rumble chat. Watch it and tell me if I'm way off base, or if you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, it's crazy. And Tucker's just asking fairly reasonable questions. Tucker gets snarky. Cruz calls him an anti-Semite. Tucker calls him like feline energy or something. It was crazy. But yeah, Tucker makes the point, like, we say we're supporting them, but like, if we don't give them money, they're not going to be our friends. Like, how it was an unsettling interview, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know how real this is here, but Kev makes the point only people over 40 are the 100% pro-Israel crowd. I wonder how much demographics are playing into the political moment right now, because the writing is on the wall that if the America First movement continues to gain momentum and keeps winning, Israel is going to have less and less support from the United States, because that is what we want as American citizens. So how much are they pushing the envelope too while Trump's in office? Because by 2028, get a new America First candidate in there that's going to appeal to the younger generations of American voters. Like, yeah, actually, we might distance ourselves from Israel a little bit. So I don't know if that's going to be anything at all too, Jason. The other thing I was really curious about, though, Tucker Carlson. I'm watching these clips right here. We showed 3 clips. Asking all very good questions, fair questions, disappointed by how a sitting U.S. Senator responded to all of them. I wonder how much people are like, Tucker came across as too snarky, too smug, laughed too much, too arrogant. It wasn't so much what he was asking, but how he was asking it. So people are getting hung up on the method rather than the message.
Yeah, and like I say, it's like the clips, we tried to find a couple spots that illustrate it. I'd like to play the APAC clip too, but probably even that's not Rumble safe. Like the line of questioning with that was kind of early on in the interview. And like I said, like next week, like if you got time over the next week, folks, throw it on. I think Paul Reese said he's going for a drive. Just go into it with an open mind, ignore the clips, just listen to it. And then, like I say, the word I would have to describe would be it was a very unsettling interview for me because I'm like, something comes off as really weird. And it reminded me of that Prince Andrew when they're asking him about the Jeffrey Epstein thing and like, okay, you are not helping with this interview. You're making this worse.
Sorry, I got hung up on the X there. I almost made a comment, but I'm not going to. Now, with that being said, Jason, we are at our hour 30 mark here. That was our last clip. Any parting thoughts for the audience?
I just want to say, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for every week. It's so fun. You know, we have the same 20, 30 people that hop on to start the day as their schedule allows. We really appreciate you guys and you taking time in your day to listen to us two Yahoos and sharing the show and giving the thumbs up. It means so much to us. And this is really our favorite out of the week. Todd and I look forward to it all week, talking about like, hey, we get to go hang out with our people and talk politics. So my one thought though for all of you, go have a great weekend, spend time with friends, family, loved ones, and all this politics will still be there on Monday. Unplug, get some time in, and yeah, that's what we're fighting for.
Absolutely. I just got to say, Jason, I love talking to you. I almost love talking to Francis and Kev and Dee Dee and Fally and Paul and everyone in our Rumble community. Like, you guys make the show. Jason and I, we could talk off air in person. It'd be a great time. But what makes this show special is all of your engagement. So we do appreciate you tuning in, choosing our show over others, although Kev does choose Bannon ahead of us most Fridays. That's okay. We'll give him a pass on that. But engaging with you all is what makes the show so much fun. So again, like Jason said, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching the show every week. Thanks for chiming in. Very insightful comments. We have such an intelligent audience, Jason, and I'm glad they're there to clarify what we're saying sometimes.
I love it. Well, on that note, folks, have a great weekend. See you next Friday.